okay, whatever we're doing right now doesn't matter because our kids want to talk to us, right? So we are committed to that connection, right? And we would never turn them away and say, oh, I don't have time to talk to you right now, right? And if I didn't have time to talk to you right now, if that was really true, I would say, hey, bud, you know what? I want to talk to you so bad. Can I come back to you in 15 minutes? I just have a call, or I just have this, or whatever. So that's what you want to do. You want to, those moments of connection, you got to, like, when they're there, you want to jump on them and be cool about it. Like, let's be cool if we've got teenagers, right? And our kids want to talk to us.
This is Mom Squad Pod, your weekly update on tips, tricks, and all things parenting with Maureen Kyle.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on the Mom Squad Pod, the podcast where we talk all things parenting. And I have a really special guest here today with me, certified parent coach and author of The Yelling Cure. We all need this. How to Stress Less and Get Your Kids to Cooperate Without Threats and Punishments. Robbin McManne, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
And I'm excited to talk to you because when we've been chatting via email, we've been talking about how to connect with your kids. And I think we're in a couple of crucial weeks here where school is about to start, summer's winding down. And I was even talking to a friend yesterday and we're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to fit all of this in while the weather's still warm and we still have the opportunities to do this. And I don't think parents give each other and ourselves enough credit for the fact that we really do a lot with our kids, but it's finding those meaningful connections. Like it's one thing to just take them somewhere, but it's another to really have an experience where we connect, right?
Yeah, I think it's the difference between doing and being. We can just be with our kids. They don't need all that stuff. In fact, what our kids really want is to just be with us, to have our attention, to have connection with us. That's really what they need. And that's actually what they're always seeking. And their behavior often asks for it in the most unlovable ways because they don't know how to articulate it. They don't know that the thing that I actually just really need is to just be with you.
You know what, since you mentioned it, I want to stay on that topic. What kind of ways do you think kids, come out with asking for our attention, and then sometimes we think of it as misbehaving?
Yeah. Oh, let me count the ways.
I'm sure we can all think of a couple ways.
Yeah. Let's see. They'll do it with eye rolls. They'll do it with disrespect. They'll do it with not listening to you, right? Being sort of stubborn, using air quotes. They will, rudeness, disrespect, refusal to listen, hurting another sibling, hurting you. Oftentimes kids will like hit you, sort of, be physical with you. And, oftentimes when parents tell me that and they want a solution for it, I usually say, well, what are you doing when they're doing that? Oh yeah, I probably was on my phone or I wasn't paying attention. I'm like, yeah, bingo. That's probably it. Right. And the thing is that, our kids can't ask for what they need when they're young. They don't know how to ask for it, like I said before. And so that causes this miscommunication because as parents, we take their behavior to mean something else. Either they're bad, the behavior is bad, but we don't realize it's actually just communication letting us know that they need something.
And I think that between the two of us, we're going to have a great perspective because you have two teenage boys.
Yes.
And I have 3 young girls where what you're saying to me, I mean, I'm immediately thinking of my just turned 3-year-old who, is acting out or throwing herself on the floor because if I am sending, and it's hard because I'm sending a work email, she doesn't know. And then we have meltdowns and it just gets to be an issue. So is it a matter of, help us through here. Is it a matter of, obviously we know we got to put down that phone, but then what are some of the ways that we can show our kids, no matter what age, how we're connecting?
Right. So, just so you know that when you do turn to your phone, which is it's such a, almost a cliche, right? Like as soon as I pick up the phone, my kid starts to, crying, whatever. And the reason why they do that is it's just that again, they don't know what else to feel, but they fear that loss of that connection with you. And so they start to feel anxious about it. And then that brings up the tears. So, first and foremost, I think that with parenting is to understand that our kids' behavior isn't personal. First and foremost, they are feeling something in their own little world, right? That is as real to them as our feelings are to us, right? But they just don't know how to say it. And I want to just talk for a moment about brain growth, because there's a reason why they can't understand what they're feeling and can't articulate it, right? Our brain, and I'm going to use my hand here, our brain grows from the bottom up, right? So if I use my hand, this is the brainstem, the cerebellum, inside here is the amygdala, and our babies are born down here in our sort of most primitive brain. Then they move up to the amygdala, and that's how they see their world until they're about 7 years old. And then they will, and then they get the prefrontal cortex, which is emotional regulation, which is, the ability to have empathy and compassion and critical thinking and that sort of thing. So it takes a long time. So when they have behavior, you've got to understand that it's emotion out of control, not behavior. Right? Not them purposely doing it. So first and foremost, we need to not take it personally. And we need to just be curious as to what is fueling that behavior. And when we can get to what's underneath the behavior, then we can address the outward expression of that behavior, right?
Yeah. So when we do kind of figure it out, when we think, okay, I've been on my phone, or I haven't been paying attention, and that's why they're acting out, or they've just been carted around all day or whatever. What should parents do to, any advice on like sitting down and resetting? Like what's the best way to reset and turn things around? Because that's all we want to do in the middle of that meltdown. It's like, wait a second, how do we get to the other side of this? And how do we get to the opposite of what's happening right now?
Okay, so so if we're talking about your child in the midst of a meltdown, right? Look, there are things that have happened up to that point that maybe we've missed, or maybe your child just has sort of endured little infractions, injustices, little frustrations, right? It's frustrating. You live in a world of giants, right? So of course, and you don't have any freedom, really. You're told what to do nonstop. So in the midst of a meltdown, just know that it wasn't just the one thing, right? Even though it may feel like it. The thing is that a meltdown is really a pressure valve. And it is such a beautiful opportunity to let your child just feel their feelings, because that's all they want to do. But also, it is a beautiful opportunity for you to connect with them, because in the midst of the meltdown, even if it's in the grocery store, even if it's, in front of your in-laws, for you to say, whoa, okay, hold on. Oh, you are really frustrated. So name a feeling that they must be feeling, right? And what that does on many different levels is it shows them that what they're feeling is normal and natural, that there's a name for it, right? And then if you can just accept it and say, oh, love, you just need to feel your feelings. Like you just need to let it all out. That's okay. And I'm going to stay here with you, instead of go to your room, instead of go sit on the naughty step, instead of get over it, instead of just stop, right? It's like you can't stop. And quite honestly, if you are in the midst of your own rage and someone said, hey, could you just stop and use your words? Like, could you? No, probably not. I know I couldn't. I probably rage even harder. So our kids just need to go through the tunnel of emotion. It's like they're a little train, and the emotion is the tunnel, and they need to go straight through. As adults, we're not so comfortable doing that.
No. Yeah, and you know what? I have to admit, Robbin, I mean, as you're saying this, I'm thinking, I've tried it that way. And then there's been so many times where they're frustrated. They're having a meltdown. That makes me frustrated. I was even thinking about, yesterday we had an issue, and it was a hot day, and I'm hot and I'm sweaty and trying to get them somewhere, and they're having a meltdown and I'm having a meltdown.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you recommend parents say to themselves? Because it's really hard to be a calming voice and the person who steps out and says, okay, you're feeling frustrated. when you're also feeling frustrated too.
Absolutely. Empathy is for your kids, but it's also for you too. Like for you to take a second and just stop and say, okay, you know what? This is really hard. I am really struggling right now. I just need to take a second. For you to do that, first of all, parenting isn't an emergency, right? There was nothing, right? But we rush ourselves, we just power through. But what would it be like if you were able to say to your girls, you know what, girls, hang on. Mommy's feeling overwhelmed. I need to take a minute to reset because I don't want to yell at you, because I don't want to be grouchy mommy when we go out to the place that we're going to go where we're supposed to have fun, right? I want to just, mommy needs a minute. I'm just going to go sit and I'm going to go take a few deep breaths, let's say, right? So you're modeling for them and you're also explaining to them exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it because you have a need that needs to get met. I think that's a beautiful way to solve the problem that you're feeling, but also model that for your kids too.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it will help you.
You also mentioned the older kids, and
Yeah.
first being teenagers, um, and being in that phase in life. What do parents do when it's the butting the heads? I feel like you get past a meltdown phase, and then it becomes like a butting the heads with the kids. Just where you're in an argument, and how do you de-escalate and also connect meaningfully with teens that they're still forming too. I mean, they're still trying to figure out how to deal with their emotions and handle it in a mature way.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's for sure. As a mom of teenagers, it can be tough, and they are opinionated. And what we have to do as parents of teens is we have to just listen more and talk less, right? They're exploring the world, they're experiencing the world, and they want to talk about it. But if we shut them down and we want to tell them all the ways they're wrong, they're not going to come to us anymore and talk to us. Like, let's listen to them. So maybe they have a different idea than us. Okay, why can't I listen to that? I don't have to agree. I can just listen. And so as your kids grow, you sort of change from being this teacher, teaching them the ways to be and what they need to do and learn and that sort of thing, to really sort of mentoring them and saying, well, what do you think? Oh, that's interesting. Letting them fail a little bit, right? Because that's the whole point, right? Is that we're growing them so they can grow up and away from us, which is hard, but that's the plan, right? So we've got to allow them to think on their own, right? And stop running our own agenda, right? Because that's when our kids start to reject us, is they're like, oh, wait a second. You've been making me play piano all these years and I hate it. Now I'm a teenager. I can say, no, forget it. Right. So we've got to be really aware of who they are as individuals too. That respect begets respect, and they will respect you. And I think that goes for your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old having a meltdown in Target. I mean, it's the same thing, right? They deserve respect. They're going through something. And yes, we are too, but we have a fully grown brain, and we have so much more that we can control than our child does. So they just need the space and the empathy.
And it sounds like you're talking about those down times, the times where we're not in conflict, and it's almost like
Right.
laying the groundwork. And what other ways do you, in your experience and in your research, have you found ways to connect with our kids when it's not that high intensity time, where it's more, like one-on-one talking, and those moments where we are even keel and keeping the peace, that we can lay the groundwork to avoid future conflict?
Yeah. And okay, so when there is downtime, and even now, right, there are times where my kids just want to talk to us, right? And it may not be at the right time for us that we want to, but like my husband and I, we will just like, okay, whatever we're doing right now doesn't matter because our kids want to talk to us, right? So we are committed to that connection, right? And we would never turn them away and say, oh, I don't have time to talk to you right now. Right. And if I didn't have time to talk to you right now, if that was really true, I would say, hey, bud, you know what? I want to talk to you so bad. Can I come back to you in 15 minutes? I just have a call, or I just have this, or whatever. so that's what you want to do. You want to, those moments of connection, you got to like, when they're there, you want to jump on them and be cool about it. Like, let's be cool if you've got teenagers, right? And our kids want to talk to us. And so there are moments of, there are times during the day where our kids want to connect more. And that's what bedtime is about. Oftentimes our kids want to talk at bedtime. That's why they become philosophers and they want to tell you all about their day and all that kind of stuff. So those are the moments to connect. And of course, those are not the most convenient times, right? I want to go back for a second about the headbutting, if I can, because I don't think I answered your question right, or I didn't really address it. Here's what I want to say though. When it comes to headbutting, so what I said is listen more, right? But don't take the bait either. Just, if your child is like, oh, well, what about this? Or how about this? Please stay in curiosity. Just say, well, how come you think that way? Right? And just be willing to agree to disagree, because look, you want to respect that your child is trying to work things out, right? They may not have all the answers right now, and that's okay. Let them explore the world. That's what you got to do. Let's let them do that too. So I hope that's okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I think that those two insights go hand in hand too, of listening and talking. And it's so funny you mentioned that, because even my daughter was probably 6 turning 7, more like when the pandemic started. And one of her favorite things to do when school was shut down and we were working from home, she wanted to come in and tell me all about school and what she was missing about school. And I'm there folding laundry, like, who is this kid coming and opening up to me? When, I don't know, I found, tell me if I'm on the right track here, but I found that when I tell her things like, oh, well, when I was your age, like there's a light bulb that goes off. I mean, as a parent, I know that I'm not discovering something that people haven't already discovered, but sharing in that way of reminding them that you were once their age, how does that affect them? Like, how do you think that can today?
Yeah, I think it gives them comfort. It makes them feel like what they're feeling is not isolated to just them. They don't know, their view of the world is so small, so tiny. And to know that, oh, you felt that way too. I think that's huge. And it gives them a sense of, okay, like there's nothing wrong with me, because we're so quick to say, oh, there must be something wrong with me. Right. And there isn't. It's like, oh, mommy gets it too. Oh, that's great. Now I can talk to mom about it. And when I talk to mom about it, she asks me questions and she listens. Right. That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny to see her eyes light up, like, oh, you were there. Now I know I can come to you. In your practice and in your experience, is there a common question that you get from parents, or a common issue that they come to you with saying, this happens all the time in my family and I just don't know what to do about it?
There's a few, refusal to listen, right? They're like, how do I get my kids to listen? How do I get them to, stop saying no to me or whatever. And so I would say that is probably the biggest one, right? There's disrespect. There's a lot. Sibling rivalry is a big one. But I would say not listening, and then parents are repeating. And then you get to the point where you're yelling, and then they listen, and you think, well, why did I have to yell? That's not fair. I had to get mad for you to listen to me. Like, that's not fair at all. Right. So then you're feeling resentment. They're frustrated. They're like, why did mommy get so mad all of a sudden? Right. You're like,
is there a solution to it? Because that's what I cannot even tell. This is a conversation I had yesterday with 3 other friends, and we all had the same experience trying to get out the door and saying, get your shoes, we're leaving. And then it turned into like screaming.
Oh, I love it. I don't love it, but I love being able to share with you how to do it. Because
I know we're all in it together. That's what makes it comforting. But like, what do we do?
Yeah. And I used to hide from my neighbors because I was like so yelly in the garage, and I didn't want them to know that I was this miserable woman.
My neighbors are going to call child services any day. I'm like, why are they always out in their garage when I'm yelling in mine?
It is just, of course, that's going to happen. Of course it is. So here's the thing. So what we have to realize, right? Again, you've got an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So it's a little bit like herding cats. I'm sure the 8-year-old is, helpful to a certain degree. So think about it from their perspective, right? There's so many different things going on in their world. Whatever it is that they're doing right now, they're consumed with, right? Whether they're playing, whether they're watching, whatever they're doing, right? And so what we do is we're like, okay, let's go, right? And we're like in the kitchen and they're in the living room, or we're upstairs, they're downstairs, whatever. They're upstairs, we're downstairs. They don't hear us, and they don't hear us even passively, because they're consumed by what they're doing. So, we need to respect that. Okay, if I want to get my kid to listen, I need to do this a little bit differently, because clearly that's not working, right? So what I always say is, first, notice where you are and notice where your child is, right? Then go to them first. Now I know you have 3, so we'll talk about that, but you got to go to your kids first, and then give them a little lovey, right? Give them a little tap on the shoulder, a little arm rub, a little back rub, something like that. Just sort of bring them back into the here and now, right? Because they need a moment to transition back to mommy. Yeah. Because they're not doing it purposely, right? They're not doing it to upset you. They just can't. So make that connection. And when you know that they are here in this moment with you, then you say, hey, babe, guess what? We're going to go now. We're going to go to the park. So come on, let's go get your shoes on. And you take your daughter with you. You take her with you. And beforehand, you've gotten her shoes ready, right? You know where her shoes are. This is not the time for you to say, well, why didn't you put your shoes back where you were supposed to put them? And I can never find your shoes. And, they're in the garage, or they're in your bedroom, blah, 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 blah. Nope. You're going to have all of that sorted out first, because you're going to put the effort in on the front end of the situation, instead of being caught on the back end where you're going to be frustrated and upset and everybody's crying, right? I mean, I've pulled out of my garage crying many times, right? So you take her to the shoes. You've got them already ready, because you're this, like, I got this kind of, I'm a in charge mama. I know what needs to happen here, whatever. And then you're going to give her any help she needs, right? Your 5-year-old needs help. Your 3-year-old needs help. Your 8-year-old may need help. This is not a time to criticize them or say, okay, no, you need to do this. Oh, how come you can't do this now? And no, none of that stuff. Just, here are your shoes. Can I help you put them on? No, you got them? Okay, good, great. Here's your jacket. Great. Okay. Now I'm going to put you in the car, and I'm going to go get your sisters, right? Now you're going to go get you probably the 3-year-old you can pick up while you're doing the 5-year-old, right? Yeah. But you want to sort of divide and conquer a little bit, and you want to slow down and just put that effort in on the front end so that you're organized and ready. And I also just say one last thing is, make sure you're ready to go, because if you're grabbing things and doing things and whatever, that is sort of a recipe for disaster. Because as soon as you take your attention and away from your kids, then they're like, oh, we don't have to, mom's not looking, and it's not that they're diabolical masterminds. It's just that they lose focus, and it's like, oh, okay, I got to go do this thing now, right? Not, I got to go in the car and get my seatbelt on.
Right. You bring up such a great point. I laugh because I can't remember which child of mine said it, but they were doing an impression of me, and they said, mommy's like, let's do this. Now we're late. Like, right. I'm trying to squeeze so much in the day, and it's like, let's do this, and we're late, and it's your fault. And I'm definitely guilty of that so many times.
And you know what? So what if you're late? Like we stress out and ruin relationships for minutes, right? So you're 10 minutes late. Get people used to you being 10 minutes late, like, oh yeah, Maureen, she's always late. And it's like, okay, no problem.
I always say I'm in my own time zone, and it's 15 minutes off of yours. That's just it.
I love it. Yes. I mean, look, I'm not trying to disrespect you. It's not that. I just have 3 kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Robbin, this has been so insightful. I really appreciate it, because I think you have hit home. It's like talking to your best friend who knows a little bit more than you do about parenting, but all the issues that we run into. You have been such a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's such a joy to share. Thank you.
And where can we catch your podcast?
Yeah, my podcast is called Parenting Our Future. It's on every podcast platform. So yeah, it's I'm into year 3 of my podcast. So I have lots of really great guests, experts in the parenting space, all different topics. So no matter what age your child is at, you'll find content that you like.
All right, there you go. Just the more information and more experiences we can share, the better our lives are going to be. So Robbin,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for listening to the Mom Squad Pod. We'll see you right back here next time.
Thanks for listening to Mom Squad Pod with Maureen Kyle from WKYC Studios. Subscribe now so you never miss an update. And find more on everything you heard here on WKYC.com and on the WKYC app.